Very good. Welcome, everybody. We have inquiries and people logging in to this room as well as our direct feed through Facebook from all over the United States, from Canada, from New Zealand, from Costa Rica, Spain, and we have one guy who's still trying to get in from Hong Kong. I don't think that's too bad for our first webcast here, so welcome, everybody. We are about to get started. Today's topic is the thyroid. Could it be my thyroid? Thyroid is the number one misdiagnosis here in the United States, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and let's start to go into them. When you start to see the statistics, you start to look at what's going on, you'll start to see why we're calling this a massive epidemic. Since we have so many international people here, please forgive me, I'm speaking from the United States alone statistics. I really wasn't anticipating such an international crowd, but we'll go from there. So let's look at the numbers here in the United States. According to the American Association of Clinical Endocrinologists, the AACE, 27 million people suffer from a thyroid condition. This is extremely significant. This makes thyroid one of the most widely spread issues in our endocrine health today. Out of the 27 million, only half have been diagnosed. Therefore, 50% have symptoms and do not know what is wrong. Some sources say up to 90% of women aged 40 and up have subclinical hypothyroid. This means it's symptomatic but it's gone undiagnosed. The numbers range all across the board on this one. 27 million people is very, very high, especially when you consider that diabetes is only about 16 million. One of the leading thyroid doctors, Dr. Broda Barnes, MD, from the Broda Barnes Institute, says that 90% of Americans, men and women, are suffering from hypothyroidism. This is absolutely a tremendous number and a tremendous concept. According to the AACE, thyroid conditions are the number one endocrine disorder in the United States. Compare that to diabetes at 16 million. This is a really big concept that I think a lot of people need to really focus in on. If you listen to the debates and the discussions regarding healthcare here in the United States, around our system, around the payments and everything that's going on with the healthcare reform, the big scare is diabetes. Diabetes represents a tremendous outlay of money, one so big that a lot of people think it's going to break the American bank before anything else does. And we're talking about a 16 million population that's currently going through diabetes, and now we're looking at the subclinical element of thyroid problems, hypothyroidism, being in the 27 million range. We now have a new player on the field that will absolutely outshadow diabetes, and it's a very scary thought. And it makes it much more common than people think. Let's get down to some numbers. 80% of thyroid conditions are in women, and 80% of that percentage have hypothyroidism, and 80% of that are autoimmune. This is the rule of 80% here. Okay, let's break that down again. 80% of all thyroid conditions are in women. Of those women with thyroid conditions, 80% of them have hypothyroidism. There are many different kinds of hypothyroidism. 80% of that hypothyroid cases are autoimmune. It's pretty significant. What it basically means is the number one form of thyroid conditions, hypothyroidism, is actually an autoimmune issue. Collateral damage. Thyroid disease predisposes you to many other degenerative diseases. You think that it's bad enough to have an issue with the thyroid and all that comes with it, but there's actually a bigger scale, a broader spectrum that we need to look at when we're considering how people are suffering with thyroid issues. Thyroid plays a major role in obesity and diseases associated with weight gain. Older women with subclinical hypothyroidism are 2 times as likely to have a blocked aorta or have had a heart attack. This is significant. When you start to consider the role of obesity in our population and how those numbers are going up, and the problems that come with weight gain, including inflammatory factors, diabetes, cancers, and heart disease, this is tremendous. When you look at the statistics for women, right now in the United States, 1 in 2 people are having a heart attack or have heart disease. And if you're looking at making that twice as likely now because of a condition like hypothyroidism, with being the number one underdiagnosed problem in the United States, it makes the numbers absolutely staggering. According to the National Thyroid Institute, 50% of clinical depression could be caused by an undiagnosed thyroid condition. This is a really big issue. Depressions, anxieties, and other mood disorders and mental issues are growing at a tremendous rate. And if you don't know where it's coming from, you could be not only misdiagnosed, but you could be treating the brain and messing with brain chemistry when actually it's a thyroid issue. Studies show how autoimmune types of hypothyroid, or Hashimoto's hypothyroidism, can lead to psychosis, seizures, dementia, and mood changes. This in particular strikes a chord in a lot of people in our practice. The more and more we speak to our populations, the more we realize how people are very concerned about changes in their health as they get older. Things like psychosis and dementia in particular. People do not like the idea of growing older and losing memories. Growing older and losing mental capacities and losing parts of who they mentally and psychologically are. And thyroid issues can contribute to that earlier in life. So there's a potential to actually change that outcome later in life by acknowledging this now. Other hormone problems associated with perimenopause and menopause, including the symptoms that plague so many, are due to thyroid disease. Here's another big issue. There are a lot of people out there. Remember, thyroid issues mostly are affecting women right now, clinically and even subclinically. And a lot of women are getting these symptoms, of which we'll go over in just a minute, that come from the thyroid, and they're being diagnosed as perimenopausal or menopausal and getting hormone treatment based on that. Hormone treatment for menopause is very different than that for thyroid. We're talking about estrogen replacement therapies and other therapies like this that are known to put our health even at a further risk with cancer and other things. This is a very big consideration. Let me expand on that further. Before we do, who are we? Who are you listening to? Why are we talking to you right now? This is myself and my wife here, Dr. Don and Dr. Dana Clum. We have been in practice about 13 years. We've practiced in 3 countries, 3 states, and been involved in, had our own or partnered with over 17 offices doing wellness programs with chiropractic, nutrition, massage, integrative medicine, physical therapy, and other modalities. We've had the opportunity to live outside of the United States for the last 10 years, basically. And in those 10 years, we practiced in different medical and health cultures and systems. We practiced in Central America, where we worked with the government-run medical outreach programs. We worked with the University of Costa Rica Medical School. We worked with the Central American Games and the Central American Olympic committees for optimal health. We were able to do a lot of different things and work in a lot of different capacities there. We then traveled on to Spain and to Europe, where we practiced for a couple years in yet a completely different medical system, health system, and health culture. These experiences were fantastic for us and our young children. We're very glad that we had them. Our goal was always to come back to the United States, and when we did, the change in the United States, or the American health standard and status quo for healthcare out here, hit us right in the face. We came back to a world, we were imagining coming back home, coming back to a system and a world that we were familiar, and we were ready to jump right back in. But when we came back, it was almost a reverse culture shock at what had changed. When you're out of the country living and doing your own thing somewhere else, you can become very detached from your home and your culture. And coming back, it was like we came back to a different time and a different era. 10 years is not that much time, but it sure felt like it when we saw how the health parameters and quality of life have changed here in the United States. It really hit us, and we had to make some big choices in how we're going to practice. We realized right then and there that we did not like what we were seeing. We did not like what the health future was for ourselves and our family in the current model here in the United States. The numbers and statistics were outrageous. 1 in 2 people getting heart disease, 1 in 3 people getting cancer, 1 in 10 children on medications for psychotropic illnesses, for mental disorders, 1 in 4 on medications in general, 1 in 4 women on psychotropic drugs for different mental issues. I could go on and on these numbers. They were absolutely astounding to us.
It's so common that people don't think it's odd anymore to be medicated. People aren't surprised when they're diagnosed. People aren't surprised when they're prescribed medications. And it really has just become the expected norm for people, which is sad.
The culture, that's exactly true. The culture has very well shifted. The average American's on 3 different medications. 12 prescriptions a year are filled by every man, woman, and child here. And we bottom line, we did not want this for us or our children. And that's where we started. We started on a quest on how we can step up our health education. We call these programs health literacy. How could we get the education we need to be able to step outside of those statistics and disqualify ourselves from those statistics? And that's where we began, and that's where this education process started, and that's what we want to share with you today. What will we cover today? Let's take a look. How to recognize if someone may have a thyroid problem. The thyroid function, which we'll go into, is so vast, there are many problems that can be produced that people don't even consider as part of the thyroid. Why blood tests will come back normal even when there's a thyroid problem. We want to talk about confusing for the average person, thinking there's a problem, suspecting your thyroid, going to get medical tests, and then have them come back normal and told it's not a problem, when actually it is. It can be frustrating and drive people crazy. What's the exact function of the thyroid? We'll go into all of that. What's the cause of thyroid dysfunction? What makes it go awry? Why has this become such a widespread problem here in the United States and around the world? 80% of people estimated to have such a problem with their thyroid. What can we do to prevent it and heal thyroid problems? That's probably the most important, what people are waiting for, and we'll get to that as well. So here's the question. Could it be my thyroid? How do I know? Well, let's look at some of the symptoms. I feel rotten. That general, unhealthy, low energy, not right feeling can definitely be linked to thyroid and other hormonal issues. I can't sleep. This is another epidemic we found when we came back to the States. 2/3 of Americans, over 200 million people, are suffering from insomnia at some point during the year. Can't sleep, can't fall asleep, can't stay asleep, don't get quality sleep when they are asleep. It's tremendous. I can't concentrate. Some people call it a brain fog. They can't bring things together. They can't follow through on tasks. They're not doing as well at work. This definitely can be related to the thyroid. I'm always cold. People think, oh, it's just me. I'm just that kind of person. I have a intolerance to cold, especially my fingers, my hands, my feet. But that definitely can be an issue with the thyroid. I can't lose weight. That's a big one. We work with a lot of weight loss issues here in our office, and that is called weight loss resistance, and it's a hormonal issue, and it can directly be linked back to the thyroid. I'm losing my hair. You ladies out there, you ever notice that the hair in your brush starts to get more and more and more, or the man, you start to see it more on your pillow or in your sink? A normal pattern and normal age for what you think you should be losing is speeding up, or maybe in the bottom of your bathtub and at the drain there's more hair accumulating. That definitely can be coming from the thyroid issue. My nails are brittle. They're brittle, they crack, they're dry, they're just not healthy and not good. A lot of people will just absolutely paint over and cosmetically cover it because their nails get so bad, thinking that it's just, or not even know what it's from, but it's really from the thyroid. My energy is low. The thyroid regulates all your body's energy, and when it's under attack, when there's stress, it changes the thyroid hormones and it diverts energy. Just like when you get the flu and your body gets run down, you have to lay down, you sleep a lot, that's intentional. Your body shifts that energy from daily activity energy to healing energy, and it does it on purpose. That could be happening when the thyroid's not working right. My memory is going. How many people think that because they're getting older that these senior moments that they have are normal? Too many people. Senior moments aren't necessarily normal. Your brain is not running away from you. It's not deteriorating. It's not because you're getting older. A lot of times it comes down to hormones and not being able to close loops. How many times do people tell us, Dana, here in the practice, that they have the little things that they can't remember anymore? They'll pick up the phone to call someone, and halfway through they can't remember who they called.
It's true.
Or they will be, how many hours a year do you think people spend looking for keys, wallets, and purses? This is a significant issue as far as memory goes. My taste is off. People don't realize that taste, hunger, thirst, dietary satiation from eating, being satisfied when you eat, the sensation of being full versus the physicalness of being full is hormonal. All of that can be thrown off. People will mix up the response of thirst versus hunger and satiety and need to stuff themselves to feel the physical food in their stomach versus feeling satisfied with what they eat. That's all hormonal, and it can have a link back to the thyroid. I keep getting sick. Thyroid has a direct link with your immune function. And as it gets stressed, it lowers the immune system as it diverts energy, and it makes you more susceptible to getting sick. My sex drive is low. Both men and women can experience this from the thyroid. This is, hormones at the most basic level. I have poor digestion, which means I have gas. Sometimes I can't poop, constipation. All of this has a direct link with our hormonal activity because as different energies get shifted around, when the thyroid is out of whack and other endocrine organs are out of whack, the priority in the body shifts and it can mess with digestion. I get angry so easily. This is a big one. People really don't understand this one. That when the thyroid is under attack, especially over a long period of time, you can get irritable. Your tolerance for different things can go down. Your temper can go up. And if you don't think this is happening to you, just ask your spouse. They know, don't they? They always know. And sometimes we can't pick it up, but they'll know when things are off because they can tell in your personality. So these are just some of the different symptoms and questions we get regarding thyroid. And so the question is, could these be from my thyroid? Well, the answer is yes, absolutely. Fantastic. It can be. Okay. How come nobody's ever told me this before? See that picture of frustration? Dana did a fantastic job seeking out that picture because that's exactly the emotion that comes forth when people are caught in the middle of this thyroid issue and they're not getting straight answers and they're not getting the tests or the diagnosis or the proper treatment, and it's just frustrating. It's absolutely frustrating. Personally, I go on to a lot of health and medical chat rooms and pages directed from some of my patients, and I go to thyroid rooms, adrenal rooms, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, depression, anxiety, and you can it's palpable how you can read from their words this very picture of emotion. They are frustrated. They are confused. They are tired. A lot of them are desperate, and they end up just talking about their issues, and they're reaching out, grasping at straws, saying, hey, have you ever had this? What did you do? Have you tried this? Oh, I tried this. My doctor gave me this. My homeopath gave me that, my this, my that. And they start to change things up and go after things and inevitably make themselves worse, and we'll explain why. I can't sleep. Here's a perfect example. This is what happened. Medical doctor, I can't sleep. All right. Let's look at that. Medical route, diagnosis, insomnia. You can't sleep, you can't fall asleep, you can't stay asleep, you're not getting good rest from your sleep. Treatment, Ambien, could be, some kind of prescription. Lunesta, Tylenol PM, ZzzQuil. Dana brought this to my attention just today as we added it into the slides. NyQuil's new sleep aid. It's not for colds, not for pain, just for sleep. Never heard of it. There's probably a million more, but you get the idea. You get your diagnosis and you get your treatment. Now, this is the medical route. First of all, part of the issue is you're not getting deep enough sleep. Okay, your body's not healing. It's not self-regulating. You're not getting to your delta phase sleep. None of these medications, there's not a medication on the market that can get you to that sleep. That's something people really need to understand. You cannot medicate yourself to delta phase recovery sleep. You can get yourself knocked out. You can close your eyes and open them 8 hours later, but you will not be rested. You will not get the healing benefit from that. So that's pretty much what happens in the medical route. Let's look at the natural route. Same thing, diagnosis, insomnia. Treatment in this model, valerian root, an herb. Melatonin, a hormone. Kava kava, another herb. Sleepy time tea, or some kind of infusion. Again, I would much rather see people go this route because of the natural nature of it and the benefits that can come as a side effect versus the negative side effect of synthetic drugs. But you're still following the same equation. You're looking for a diagnosis and you're making a specific treatment. If you keep treating the insomnia from thyroid or another condition, you'll never get to the root cause of why it's there. Therefore, you might start to sleep a little better, might feel a little bit palliated, but the problem will continue and it'll get worse. So what's the solution? Simple, get rid of the cause, isn't it? Problem, seems like no one knows what the cause is. So what is the cause? That depends on who you talk to. Now, we're talking about a medical doctor here right now. Your doctor will tell you it's just mostly genetic. And there's not much you can do except take thyroid replacement hormone, drugs for the rest of your life, and deal with it. Bottom line, that makes another whole industry a lot of money, but it doesn't get you any better. Here's a really particular point I want to make out there. And if you ever talk to people about thyroid, this is something you need to communicate. Thyroid medication is a thyroid replacement hormone. A lot of people, believe it or not, don't realize that. They take the Synthroid, they take the Armour Thyroid, they take these other different things, and these are replacement thyroids. T3, T4 is thyroid hormone 3, thyroid hormone 4. TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone. This is a form of hormone replacement. And if you've been paying attention, you might have seen over the last decades how hormone replacement therapy has really made some significant problems with people's health. When they used to do it for the estrogen, it's created a lot more osteoporosis, a lot more cancers, estrogen-based cancers, and it's really not a good idea. And if people keep doing it, it'll happen just as the same in this scenario. The sad part is most people still have symptoms that the doctor now says is not related to their thyroid. As we go through this, you'll start to see the vast nature and reach of this thyroid, this little tiny organ that does so much. And because it does so much, when these what appear to be completely separate symptoms pop up, they don't relate them together and they treat them separately, allowing the original problem to go, and so on. The truth is there is a cause, and when you remove that cause from the body can heal itself. That's the only way it works. And there's a little secret in there. The body doesn't malfunction. It doesn't make mistakes. It really doesn't. A cell will sooner self-destruct and die than it will do something to hurt itself, its tissue, system, or body. So if we don't like what the body is doing, if it doesn't feel good, if it doesn't look good, if it seems to be contributing to a bigger problem, then we got to look at what we're doing. This body is responding to different triggers, to its environment, to what we're giving it. If we don't like what we see, we need to give it something different, change the environment, and change the triggers. And if you do that in the right way and give it what it needs, it will heal in almost every circumstance. And that's what our goal is. All right. Here's a big issue. Remember we mentioned before that people go to their doctor, they feel terrible, they got all these symptoms, they've Googled it, they think it's their thyroid, and their blood tests come back. There's a few blood tests that their doctor will do, the TSH, the T4, maybe the T3, come back normal, and yet they feel terrible. They say it's not your thyroid, it's something else. But in essence, it still could be your thyroid, and here's how it works. It's a cellular problem. All right? This is a picture of the cell. You can see the cell here. Every cell of the body is constructed very similar, in a similar fashion. There's a nucleus in the middle with the genetic code, the DNA strands in there, all your genetic information. Those green organelles in there, those are mitochondria. Those are what produce our cellular energy, our basic life energy. I'm not talking cappuccino, rev you up type of energy. I'm talking life energy to get moving, to feel good, to heal, and to live well. If you look to the upper left, you can see there's little shunts all over the cell that let bad waste materials out and let the good food and nutrients in. That's called cellular fluidity. Down in the bottom, you can see on the left, you can see the little example of inflammation going on. This is basically how a cell works and how it looks. When the body is getting under attack from free radicals, from inflammation, from oxidation, from toxins, from chemicals, from stress, from all these negative things that build up, it starts to inflame the membrane there. It's called with cytokines. Cytokines make the cell wall get inflamed, makes it get rigid. You lose cellular fluidity and you increase cellular rigidity. When that happens, some of that waste product can't get out, some of those nutrients can't get in. Eventually that builds a backup inside the cell, just like if you couldn't eat what you want or go to the bathroom, your whole system would get pretty messed up. Your energy level of the cell from the ATP and that mitochondria goes down, and eventually that same inflammation will hit that cell nucleus and start to affect the strands of DNA and your genetic codes in there. We are genetically designed and destined to be healthy, to be vibrant, to be happy beings. You actually have to suppress our genetics a lot, really significantly, to make it mutate, change, and express disease. But it will. And that's where it happens if it keeps getting bombarded, if there is more free radical damage, if there's more things damaging our cells than we can withstand, it'll start to happen, and that's what starts degenerative processes. All right, so now, what does the thyroid do? How does it all work? See this basic picture we have here? You can look over to the left. You see a little butterfly pink shape. That's the thyroid. And unfortunately, in this example, size does matter. Women have a thyroid twice as big as men's and is much more sensitive. That's why I think why they get so much more symptoms and more issues with it. But you can see there the thyroid takes in different nutrients, iodine, tyrosine, even selenium, and different minerals, and it makes the hormones it uses to regulate the body, T3, T4, and many others. You see a picture over to the right, you see a woman there, and inside her brain in the top it says there's the hypothalamus. That's like the central control center. It sends a hormone called thyroid releasing hormone to the pituitary gland right there. The pituitary gland passes the information with thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH, down to the thyroid, and then the thyroid makes the T3, T4, and the system continues. That's the real cycle of thyroid function. And with that cycle, the thyroid is actually the mediator to almost every body system we have, from digestion to the immune system to circulation. It has a direct link with the adrenals for revving up the heartbeat and slowing it down for the fight or flight response. It can control your skin temperature, your body temperature. It can affect how the sensitivity to your nerves, and whether you're in parasympathetic or sympathetic mode. It does a lot. It does a whole lot of things. All right, so let's take a look at this. Time, we've all seen this magazine, The Silent Killer. The surprising link between inflammation, heart attacks, cancers, Alzheimer's, and other diseases, and what you can do to fight it. Bottom line is silent inflammation is the building block. It's that process that goes on in that cell that we showed with the picture, that inflammation that builds up and affects the cell so negatively that creates the groundwork for all degenerative chronic diseases. We're talking depression, anxiety, diabetes, hormone issues, thyroid, liver, digestion, nervous system, cancer, heart disease, arthritis. The list can go on and on. When inflammation becomes chronic rather than transitory, the body turns on itself with after effects that seem to underline a wide variety of diseases. That's exactly what happens. That's what goes on. There's another picture of the thyroid. We're going to talk about autoimmune thyroiditis right now. Okay, inflammation in the thyroid. Thyroid's super sensitive. Very, very sensitive gland organ in there. Toxins, diet, and infection can cause inflammation directly to the thyroid, or by triggering a gene that sparks the immune system to attack itself and drive chronic inflammation. That came from Time magazine. Didn't really. They had their research. It's come from years and years of medical research that they're now finally trickling through and getting to the public. Once it gets to Time, it means it's been out there for a while. This is known as autoimmune disease, when the body attacks itself. In the case of hypothyroid, we call this disease Hashimoto's thyroiditis. The itis at the end of the word thyroid, as in thyroiditis, literally means inflammation, like tendinitis, arthritis. All the different itis that there are simply means inflammation. The inflammation process releases something known as cytokines, which attach to the hormone receptors of the cell membranes of both the thyroid gland and the distant cells. Very important. I'll come right back to that. The immune system sees this as a foreign protein and attacks the cells, driving inflammation further. Now let's look at that. The inflammation process, the cytokines, they mess with not only the thyroid, but they mess with every single cell in your body. That's cellular systemic inflammation, okay? And if those receptors to the hormones, like the thyroid hormones, aren't working well, it doesn't matter if the thyroid is healthy and is producing the perfect amount of hormone for your blood. If it doesn't get into your cell, you're going to have problems. So that's how you can go in and say, Doc, I'm not feeling good. What's going on is your hormones not getting in your cells, and so of course you don't feel good. All those symptoms can be going on, and you can get a blood test, a very overly simple one, in my opinion, TSH, T4, T3, and they go, look, it's normal. It's not your thyroid. Well, it's still a hypothyroidism. It's just not at the level of the gland or the blood. It is in your cells. And that is one of the biggest distinctions we could possibly hope you can walk away from here. It doesn't have to be the gland. It doesn't have to be the hormone in your blood. It can very well be inflammation on a cellular level that's causing this. Cellular inflammation. 3 main problems. Number 1, can't get the nutrients into the cell that we need. All right, so when that oxidation is going on, that inflammation is going on, the cellular wall rigidity is going on, those nutrients, the food can't get in. Those antioxidants can't get in. Those methyl groups to keep your DNA and genetics in check and happy can't get in. It's very important. Number 2, can't get the toxins out. Basically, the cell can't poop. It's building up with these toxins, and it triggers genes of susceptibility, driving autoimmune thyroiditis and inflaming the cell membrane further. So it's a cycle there. And so now the inside of the cell gets toxic, the energy goes down, and the DNA gets affected. And that's when it can absolutely mutate, and you can start to trigger the negative genes of disease. Number 3, receptors on the cell membrane are blunted. That means the cell can't hear the hormones, and therefore never hear the voice of the thyroid hormone, TSH, T3, etc. Little picture down there is the cell wall, just the wall. It's got a double layer there. It's got some different structures in there. There's proteins, there's fats. The cell wall is mostly fat. There's sugars, and all of those little mechanisms communicate information back and forth. And when that cell wall gets inflamed, when it gets rigid, it gets hard. It's like rust on a car. It doesn't move well. The information doesn't get passed, and the cells can't respond. Basically, you won't feel well. You'll be toxic. All right, inflammation of the thyroid. Toxins, diet, and infection can cause inflammation directly or by triggering the gene that sparks your immune system to attack itself and drive chronic inflammation. We went through this. All right, let's go. Okay, 3 ways that creates dysfunction. Remember, those toxins, infections, diets, hormone surges, they can trigger the genes. The autoimmune can react. Let me tell you a little bit of how that happens, if I might stop here for a second. The autoimmune, because it is the most prevalent form of thyroid issues, hypothyroidism, it deserves a little attention. Here's what happens. Most of the all autoimmune cases come from issues in the gut. The gut is what fuels and what contributes the building blocks for your immune system. That's your intestines, that's your digestion, that's everything in there. When that is off, the autoimmune system starts to react, and then it can go crazy anywhere it wants. One of the things that happens, and we've all heard of the big bad gluten, haven't we? Gluten is this protein in wheat that people have identified. The real ugly part of gluten is called gliadin. Gliadin is the actual protein that gets through the leaky gut or the holes or problem in the gut into the body and creates the autoimmune reaction. The gut has its issues when we have bad diet, we're stressed, there's hormones, there's other things, there's toxins, and it gets what's called leaky gut. It doesn't form tight bonds. The gliadin slips through just a little bit and gets into the bloodstream. Now we got food in the bloodstream. That's a bad thing, so the body attacks it like it should, and that's the autoimmune response. Here's the kicker. Gliadin is almost identical to the thyroid glands, receptors, and hormones. They're very, very similar, and the receptor is almost identical. So when that autoimmune flare-up happens at the gut level, it triggers the same thing to happen and attack your thyroid gland. So you're getting a double attack. So, one of the first things we have people do, and this is takeaway number 1, is if you think your thyroid is an issue, you think hypothyroidism is what's going on a cellular level, if you even have an inkling that that's going on, you need to stop eating grains. Not just gluten, grains, because there's other offensive proteins and sugars in there, and lectins and amylose and things like that that'll trigger this, because you won't know and you'll never have it calm down if you don't completely remove that. Usually we want you to work with a healthcare professional to do that, so that when you've cleaned out your diet, you can start to bring things back in to see what exactly is causing this, but that's a huge element of this. Then we go to cellular inflammation. All of these things, they disrupt the hypothalamus in the brain and the pituitary in the brain, and that can affect thyroid function. It decreases hormone receptor function on the cell, and so the message and the cells can't hear what the thyroid wants to tell it. And then it also decreases the conversion of inactive T4 to T3. T3 is what we really want, and that process takes place in the gut and in the liver and in other places. And if that's not happening, then you're going to have problems with the thyroid as well. All right. exposing a lie. Let's do some myth busting. Okay? Myth, your blood work is fine, therefore you are fine. Here's the truth. Before 1971, it was a standard practice to evaluate the patient's thyroid condition based on how they felt. Why? Because it's very, very hard to evaluate thyroid function by blood tests alone. Today, unfortunately, we are treating the labs or the blood and not the patient. By the time your blood work shows a positive test, you most likely have been having symptoms, subclinical or very clinical, for 10 to 20 years. Remember that 50% of the 27 million sufferers go undiagnosed, making this the most underdiagnosed condition on the planet. Other sources say it could be as high as 90% of women age 40 and up who suffer from subclinical hypothyroidism. Some say 90% of all America is being affected. That's outrageous. So could it be your thyroid? Yes. Got to think that almost first. So what have we covered so far? How to recognize if someone may have had a thyroid problem. Yep, covered. Why blood tests will come back normal even when there's a thyroid problem. I think we got that covered. What is the exact function of the thyroid? Exact and general. I think we went over that. And what causes this thyroid to dysfunction? Pretty good. All right. So what's left? What can we do to prevent and heal thyroid problem? Do not choose hormone replacement. This is our recommendation. Obviously, you got to do what you got to do to manage your life and your issues, and you work with your healthcare professionals on your team. Hopefully, you have a good team together. But we don't recommend it. The hormone replacement is causes a lot of different problems. Here's the myth: thyroid replacement hormones such as Synthroid, T4, Levoxyl, T4, and others are your only answer. It's not. It might be your only medical answer, but that's not the only answer at all. The truth is, 80% of the time, thyroid hormones do nothing to relieve your symptoms, let alone fix your condition. 80% of the time, 4 out of 5 times, the thyroid hormones can balance out your blood, but you're going to feel the same or get worse. Okay, but the doctors say everything's normal, and that's all they'll do. They'll usually give you a muscle relaxant, maybe antidepressant, and that's it. But you know that's not the issue. And there's still a problem at the cell level, and it's going to continue at the receptor point. So 80-90% of hypothyroid is autoimmune related, Hashimoto's again, and will not respond to synthetic thyroid hormones such as Synthroid and other drugs. Most doctors do not check for autoimmune disease for the thyroid because their treatment is the same. They only have a couple options, so they only do a few tests. There are dozens of tests for the thyroid. There's the TSH, T4, T3, reverse T3, TPO, thyroid antibodies, and then you can relate it to how it responds to cortisol and some of the adrenal issues, inflammation factors in the gut, and you can get a very, very good idea of what's going on and what kind of issue you have going on and try to heal it. Because if it's coming from your gut, you cannot fix the reactive response of a thyroid by treating the thyroid if the problem is in the gut, or if it's in the adrenals, or if it's in the nervous system. You got to identify these things, or if it's from your environment. You have some kind of exposure thing like fluoride or some kind of mold or mercury that's tripping out your thyroid. As long as you have that, you're going to have problems. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration. What can I do? You're doing it. This is step 1. Build your awareness. You need to think about these things. You need to look at it in a bigger picture. You need to see how things come together and to kind of expand your thought process about it. Avoid offenders. Okay? If you think you have a thyroid issue, stop the gluten right there. Okay? We're going to go into some more recommendations here right soon, but that's a big one. If there are some chemical sensitivities, you avoid them. You got to stop the behavior. Change your environment. Here we go. The offenders. Causes of inflammation. 3 main causes of cellular inflammation. Number 1, toxins. What are toxins? Anything in food that they use to create colors in candies, in icings and sugary things and makeup and anything, colorings are toxins. Preservatives are toxins. Anything that's been sprayed with a chemical like a herbicide, fungicide, pesticide, it's a toxin. I think we're pretty clear. There's tons of them out there. Start to be aware of them and how they can affect your poor little thyroid in there. Bad fats. Most people kind of get how margarine and trans fats are really, really bad. So I'm not going to go too much into that. But what they don't realize is all vegetable oil is bad for you when it's not in a vegetable. Vegetable oil in a vegetable is very stable. It comes with its own anecdote, but when it's removed from the vegetable, corn oil, canola oil, safflower oil, all these other oils, they become unstable and rancid. That, what's that say? Menzola oil right there. That oil, Menzola oil right there in the bottle on the shelf is rancid. Never mind when you heat it up to cook or put it in your body at 98.6 degrees, it's going to create a factory of free radicals that are going to ping and nail your cell day in and day out for at least 51 days. It takes 102 days to get that out if you can. That's a lot of things. It's estimated that every cell of your body, and there's 70 trillion plus of them, is getting dinged 10,000 to 1,000,000 times a day from free radicals. That's a lot. We got a lot of work to do. All right, so bad fats, vegetable oils. Sugars. Sugar, I think everyone knows sugars, especially processed sugars, especially in particular processed fructose of any kind, is toxic. It's really, really toxic. And what people don't really know, and we do a lot of education on, is grains. Grains are super sugars. Once they're in your mouth, they turn to sugar, to glucose within 4 to 6 seconds, and they will spike your insulin. They will set off your hormones. They will mess with your brain. They will do everything that table sugar will do, and even quicker. There's a study out there that shows a bowl of oatmeal will spike your insulin and mess with your hormones just as much as a 12-ounce can of Pepsi. People think they're doing the right thing. They're taking the oatmeal, they're putting some brown sugar, maybe some berries. They don't know, but it's a grain and it's causing problems, never mind the gluten element to it. All right. What if I suspect I have thyroid issues? Well, start with initial evaluation. The goal is to determine specific underlying cause or causes of your thyroid dysfunction. So you need a much more thorough health history. We use what's called a neurotoxic questionnaire. This is no joke. That's like 500 questions. Mostly, check the one that it's not essay questions. Just check the box. But it paints us a picture of what systems are involved and how we can prioritize our efforts and play kind of like a detective. And possibly you might need more specific tests. Personally, we like to use different tests that you can send to people's house and they can do at home, urine tests and otherwise. But there's blood tests and there's a lot of other tests out there. The more you know, the better. And that'll help you differentiate between adrenal influenced thyroid dysfunction or autoimmune influenced thyroid and so on.
Because you treat them differently.
Because they're absolutely different. Listen, if someone has an adrenal fatigue issue that's driving their thyroid, I don't go near their thyroid till that adrenal is been repaired. If someone's subluxated in their spine and their nervous system is not coordinated well, there's no point in going after these other areas until that's done. That's why, as chiropractors, our first round of defense, our first effort is to get their nervous system clear. Then see what's really messed up and what's really not. Sometimes things balance right there, and then start the process from there. Very good. Thank you for sticking with us through the whole recording. What we'd like to do is offer you some special incentives so you can get started with us today. That we want to remove all obstacles for you to get started with what you need to find out how we can help you. Here we go. What we're offering is a full initial neurotoxic questionnaire, health history questionnaire, initial consult, home toxicity test that we mentioned for melandialdehyde earlier in our program, as well as one full follow-up to see how we can help you. At that point, we'll know whether this is for you or not, and we can go from there, but that price usually comes in at about $410. All things included. Today we're offering it to you for $95. $95 hopefully removes all the financial obstacles to get you started, and we can get going right away today and see how we can help you. So take advantage of that. Tell your friends, and we'll go from there. Look forward to hearing from you. Give us an email directly at our website or here on Facebook, and we'll get started with you today. It's question time. You guys are still with me? I see there was some comments when I was talking. And we'll go from there. Do you have any questions? What can we help you answer?
Okay, I see one here. Why would it be important to know whether it's adrenal or autoimmune? What will you specifically end up doing differently? How would someone know that?
Okay, here's the interesting thing. The adrenal issue can definitely charge the thyroid and drive it down. But here's another thing. 70% of adrenal issues are autoimmune. Funny how that works. So many things come back to autoimmune, but we have to prioritize and see how we're going to do it. Because if it's truly an adrenal thing, we have to recuperate, get those adrenals to a basic function before we can address the thyroid issue.
Exercise is different.
For example. A lot of people, they're not feeling good. They got an adrenal issue, so I'm going to change what I eat, and I'm going to go to the gym, and they do the wrong workouts, and they make themselves worse. Sometimes the right intentions can make you worse, and we want to address that, and we want to change that and address that differently. When it's really it's full go on autoimmune, you got to heal the gut. The gut, we do an elimination diet where we eliminate all these different offenders and we start testing them. And you might have to reconstitute that gut. It's you know why autoimmune are so prevalent? Antibiotics. It's the antibiotics. Well, as soon as you have one dose of antibiotics, you just killed indigenous bacteria in your gut that helps make you sick. I mean, help keep you well, and you get sick, and you never get that back. And some people have a real hard time reconstituting their gut, and so we have to rebuild that. What else? What does that say? I can't read that. Yes, do kids get thyroid problems? Unfortunately, they do. Unfortunately, they do. Kids, it shows up differently. Kids are very susceptible when they're young, before they're 12 or so, because they're forming, and those glands and their hormones haven't really kicked in. So especially to toxicity issues, they are very, very sensitive. So, I mean, we do a lot of kids, because of the mother's constitution and what she's got in her system, she passes on heavy metals, lead, mercury, and other things onto the kid, and the kid then comes out and gets vaccinations and gets fillings in their teeth, and a lot of kids get toxic that way, and that's the first step. And if you let it go, thyroid runs into so many things that eventually down the line leads into chronic fatigue issues and fibromyalgia-like issues, and it can just be bad. So yeah, they can absolutely be involved. ADD, ADHD, autism is really part of the same type of work, different end of the spectrum, but the same type of work, and you can detect it very early. All right, let's see. What types of exercise should a person with thyroid disease do to lose weight and get energy? All right, that's a very good question. Specifically, if you're toxic, if you're coming up high on the toxic load and your hormones are mixed around, first thing you got to do is you got to get to a natural eating plan to revamp those hormones. And as you do it, if you want to keep working out, you're looking at high intensity interval type training, weights, or intense short-term things. Last thing you want to do is jump on a treadmill for 45 minutes, zone out 3 times a week, and do that. Your body will interpret that as a stress. We only have 2 types of energy to use in our life. We have sugar and we have fat. All right. If you're doing slow and low energy, you're burning fat. If you're doing high intensity energy, you're burning sugar. Here's the secret: whatever you burn in your workout, your body flips and does the opposite when you're not working out for the next 38 hours. And there's a big problem, because here, look, you burn fat on the treadmill going slow and low. As soon as you get off, the moment you step off, your body flips to burning sugar. We don't want to be chronic sugar burners. We want to be fat burners. You want to burn fat for the next 38 hours, but you just forced in a sugar burning mode, and then you add a bad diet on top of that, then you add a stressed out adrenal or thyroid, and man, you got a problem going on. And so we switched that up, but we can give you more specifics if you contact us. I don't want to get too specific without knowing your case. All right. So, what if I've already been diagnosed with thyroid problem? Is it too late? No, it's not too late. The body is extremely resilient. The body can heal and change and get over things like you wouldn't believe. What's too late? Even when we've had people here that have their thyroid removed, even then it's not too late, because the body will have mechanisms to balance and adapt to different things. It's going to be a challenge. That person might need some synthetic hormones. I mean, that might be a case. I don't know. It's pretty specific. I usually work with the medical doctor down the road when that stuff happens, just to make sure that we're covering everything. But no, it's never too late. We've seen people after 20 years of medication and problems turn around, and it's usually pretty quick. They'll start feeling better within 3 to 6 months. Within a year, they just know they're on the right track. In a couple years, they can bounce back out and pretty much get their life back. And what they've basically done by doing that is change their health future from that point on. And that's a very powerful thing to do. All right, another question here. What if I have no thyroid because of treatment? Yeah, this is radiation. If you don't have a thyroid, there's definitely different complications and things to be done, but you can still get better. Your brain makes those chemistry. There's more neurotransmitters, more hormones made in your gut than there are in specific organs. Your liver also could makes T3 and T4. You want to, especially if you have no thyroid, you want to make sure you are doing everything you can to make sure the rest of the systems and your default mechanisms are still working in there. What about gluten-free foods? Rice, pasta, cookies, breads. Well, I get that question a lot. I say no. No grains. If you know you got a thyroid thing going on, it's not worth it. Because here, you buy gluten-free foods, there's still lectins in there. There's still amylose in there. There's still other things in there. We're really not meant to eat grains. 81% of Americans are gluten intolerant genetically. And so it's not a far stretch to think that we're just not supposed to eat this stuff. And if you think thyroid's a part of it, you got to get off it. You start to feel phenomenally better, which most people do, probably don't want to go back there. Once someone cleans up their diet and gets off all grains, and sometimes they'll say, look, I did a month of this, I'm doing great, I'm going to treat myself and go have a piece of pizza. And man, they suffer. They don't sleep that night, they get bloated, they get pain, and they come back and they go, oh man, it was bad. So, once you've taken it out of the system and once you're off of it and things are healing, you're doing better, you're more flexible, you're more mobile, your spine's clear, you can start to reintroduce things and you can see how it goes. But we do it one thing at a time. This is for people who, it's full on going on. You just don't have the room to play around. Okay? Does that answer your questions so far? I'm approaching the end of my time. If you got any more out there, I have another question here about kids and about avoiding thyroid issues. The thyroid loves minerals and good, wholesome minerals. A mineral-rich body is a healthy body. Okay, remember the thyroid acts like the canary in the coal mine. It's very sensitive, so the better health you can aim towards your thyroid before there's a problem, the less chance you'll have a problem, and the stronger it'll be. So a lot of things, if there's no thyroid issue already, and you're trying to prevent it, good green veggies. Don't cook them too much. A lot of raw veggies, a lot of sea vegetables. Good clean water. Most Americans are magnesium deficient. Magnesium foods, potassium, broths, things like that. Very good, very nutritious. Can help support your thyroid. Get kids to like all that stuff early, and man, you're gonna save their life later on. It's so hard to get an adult. I get some adults in here. I'll tell you, mostly they're men. I swear they were beaten and whipped by asparagus as children the way they hate vegetables, and it's hard to work with those people. All right, got some more questions coming in. Should a person with thyroid disease take more vitamins and supplements than the average person? Yes. The average person's not taking anything. Or if they are, they're buying it at Walmart, Kmart, Costco, bad stuff, okay? You don't get your vitamins at bulk and buy. If they're taped together, 3 for $1, don't get them. Supplements are amazing when they're done right. We also try to keep people away from mononutrients. You don't want to just get vitamin C, just get this isolated amino acid, just get this thing, because that's not how it happens in nature. That's not how your body processes it. You need to get synergistic, whole food based. When I'm working with someone who's sick or has a disease, we're working with herb based. It's even more potent. It's got to be the right combination. And yeah, they should absolutely take more things. A lot of people need to detox. They need to get stuff out. They need to make sure that their spine is clear. They need to make sure that their physical activity is up. They need to make sure they're de-stressing. This is significant because it only bioaccumulates as you get older if you don't address it. And it's not because you're getting older. It's because you're building up more time and more junk in there, and it's going to feel worse. So yeah, absolutely, and we can help you with that. And the first thing is go on the cleanest raw diet you can go on. The 500, someone's asking about the 500 questions. It only takes about 20 minutes. They're not essay questions. You fill them out. It's done by system. It just helps us create a profile for you. It enables us to be more specific with what we do. And mainly if tests are needed, to order the right tests. I don't like to go into too many tests. There's a lot of things you don't need tests for, but some things you want them for. And plus it'll help you gauge your results as you go. All right? Okay. Listen, everybody here, I hope you enjoyed the time. This is our first one like this. This was a big challenge for us. We normally do this type of presentation in a 4-hour workshop, and we had to fit it into 45 minutes. I know sometimes I might have been flying. Feel free, please, whether you want the consult or not, write an email, some points. Hey, Don, I would like to see you cover more of this. You talked too much on this. This wasn't clear, or you did great, whatever. Send it in, And if there's any more questions, send me an email, and I'll do a follow-up to this to everyone on here and everyone on Facebook as well, and we'll try to cover all the questions. So my time is up. It's now 2 o'clock, and so hope everyone enjoyed it. I look forward to your comments, and do the best you can. Live healthy and take care of that thyroid. Thank you.